You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tehan. In addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. Sean, they don't get too much better in the regular season than this. Packers, Lions, national TV, division title kind of on the line, or at least the Packers' chances to stay in it. Before we break down this very exciting game, how about a word from our sponsor?
Yeah, tough road game coming up for the Packers, and they won't be back at home for a couple of weeks. And in case you're wondering, Wisconsin's own Ticket King for over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans, so you can be there at Lambeau Field when they play the New Orleans Saints on Monday Night Football in a few weeks. But you can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. For direct links to specific Packers game tickets, go to packerstalk.com/tickets or browse their website at theticketking.com. Also, you can watch every episode of No Huddle Radio on YouTube. Subscribe to us. And again, you have the Ticket King app right there in case you want to get to a Packer game right there on your screen. If you're watching with us on YouTube today, thank you so much. If you're joining us live, we got predictions. We got a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about in this late night hour on Tuesday night going into Thursday Night Football. A massive game coming up in Motown in the Motor City against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, 11-1 against 9-3, division rivalry, a team that has never won a Super Bowl, trying desperately to get to their first. A Packers team that has been a perennial winner for more than 3 decades, trying to get back to the Super Bowl. You got the rivalry, you got a lot at stake, national television. It doesn't get too much better than this.
Yeah, and Gil, the Packers, they're coming off right now their 2 best games probably of the year. I would say 2 of their best 3, because the Arizona game was a pretty darn good game that they played earlier this season. The 38-10 win over San Francisco, the 30-17 Thanksgiving win over Miami. Packers are playing really good football right now. The Detroit Lions, they're currently leading the NFC. They have the best record in football, tied with the Kansas City Chiefs at 11-1 overall. It's been a really top-heavy NFC conference. And Gil, I just wonder where the Packers seem to be hitting their stride at the right time. And they're going into December where Matt LaFleur's Packer teams are 17-2 under his direction. Where do the Packers currently rank, in your opinion, in the NFC right now?
I think they are the second best team in the NFC, maybe third behind Philly. I kind of go back and forth. I think Detroit has to be 1. I know Minnesota has a better record, but I don't think they're a better team than the Packers right now. I would put the Packers, you know what? They lost to Philly. I would have to put Philly just a smidge ahead of the Packers. So I'd put Green Bay at 3, but it's really, really close.
I would put them 4th, and I think they could easily leap ahead in these rankings. And we won't really know until the NFC playoffs are upon us and everything like that. But I put them solidly in 4th because their 3 losses this year, Detroit, Philly, and Minnesota, those are the 3 teams I have higher ranked in the NFC. And those are the 3 teams in the NFC with better records than the Green Bay Packers right now. So I think 4th overall is fair in the NFC. But if the Packers keep playing this way, where the offense is playing turnover-free football, they're moving the sticks on 3rd downs, they're capitalizing in the red zone, they're getting key stops on defense on 4th down, they're getting to the quarterback a little bit more lately. They're not allowing teams to score so much. Green Bay could easily move up these rankings, but hey, you got to take care of Detroit first.
Yeah, that's the key right now. Look, here's the bottom line. If the Packers lose to Detroit, they're wild card only. I mean, there is almost no chance whatsoever that they could win the NFC North. If they win on Thursday night, it is wide open in the division. It becomes a 3-horse race that will go down to the final week. And the beautiful thing is that the Packers have an easier schedule than Detroit going down the home stretch. And I think an easier schedule than Minnesota. And they still play both of those teams. So it's still out there for this Packers team to take, but they've got to play their best football to do it.
Yeah, and December has been a very good month for the Packers under Matt LaFleur's watch. But yeah, you got You got Detroit, who's leading the NFC right now. Minnesota, a team that's 10-2. They just keep finding ways to win. And then Seattle next week, obviously, they're leading the NFC West right now. That could be a potential playoff preview. We could see Green Bay travel to Seattle, where I don't even need to mention to the diehard Packer fan how much that place sucks for a Green Bay Packers fan. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, it's been a long 10 years since what could have been in Seattle back in 2014. But going into this game, Gil, you got the Packers obviously playing in Detroit, a huge Thursday night football game. It's going to be on national television, and the Packers seem to be getting a little healthier. Cornerback Jair Alexander, who's been dealing with that lingering knee issue, he's been practicing this week. Romeo Doubs still technically in the concussion protocol, but he has also been at practice this week. Alexander, he's missed essentially the last 4 games. He played 10 snaps in that Chicago game. It really hasn't been around ever since having that non-contact knee injury in the final defensive play of the Jacksonville game. Doubs left that San Francisco game with concussion, didn't play against Miami. Elton Jenkins, their stud left guard, was dealing with a knee issue, didn't practice on Monday, but did return to practice on Tuesday. And then linebacker Edrin Cooper, who luckily they haven't missed too much the last couple games on defense, dealing with that hamstring issue, still has not been practicing this week. Gil, what do you make of this injury report for the Green Bay Packers? It seems like even despite some key injuries the last few games, they've been able to keep things moving in the right direction.
Yeah, they have been, and they seem to be peaking at the right time. Look, it would be huge to get Jair Alexander back for this game. It would be great to get Edrin Cooper back as well, but it doesn't look like that is even remotely looking likely right now. But, with all of the receiving weapons that Detroit has, and we're not going to go into it too deeply just yet, but you would want Jair Alexander back if at all possible.
And Detroit's an absolute juggernaut on the offensive side of the football. So absolutely, you want your best defensive players. They played the Miami Dolphins and San Francisco 49ers, 2 very good offensive football teams, very well from a defensive perspective. They really did. And they didn't have Jair. They didn't have Edrin Cooper. And they still were able to hold those teams to 10 and 17 points, respectively. They were able to get to the quarterback quite often and force key turnovers, key takeaways, key 4th down stops in both those games as well. It's a lot of upside on the defense. I want the best players, obviously, to be there for the Packers. And then on the offensive side, obviously, Romeo Doubs would be really nice to have. He made some critical 3rd down catches in that San Francisco game. You really need his presence on the field, especially if it's going to be a high-scoring game like we may anticipate coming up on Thursday.
Yeah, Doubs is that go-to guy. When it's 3rd and 6, he'll get you 7 or 8. He's that reliable, short to medium range kind of receiver with good hands who runs good patterns. And it would be absolutely great to get him back. But you know what? They did okay without him last week. Against Detroit, where it's all hands on deck, you really want to have Romeo Doubs there. He is, in many ways, a security blanket for Jordan Love, but there's another player who's sort of taking over that role to a certain extent, and it's tight end Tucker Kraft.
Absolutely. And let's get into the offense. And I want to also chime in. Daryl chiming in on the chat. Thank you for tuning in on this late night hour, Daryl, on a school night nonetheless. Saying the Packers are certainly better than last season's Packers. Their defense is a lot better. The offenses ran the ball a whole lot better too. I agree, Daryl. I agree. Just keep feeding Josh Jacobs. I'm with you there, buddy. But with the Green Bay offense and the Detroit defense, you're looking at a Green Bay offense that's 3rd in total offense this year. Detroit's defense, even though they have been decimated by injury, still the 10th total defense in the NFL right now. Green Bay's offense is averaging 26.5 points per game. That's 8th in the league. They have the 8th best passing attack, the 5th best rushing attack. Detroit's defense, well, they're 25th against the pass. They're 5th against the run. But the thing is, they don't let opponents score. They make things very tough. It gets very tight in the red zone. They're allowing opponents to score only 16.9 points per game. That's second in the NFL. The Packers only had 14 points in that first meeting. Gil, what's the critical matchup or one of the very many critical matchups we should be focusing in on Thursday between the Packer offense and the Lion defense?
Got to run the football. I think it has to start with Josh Jacobs being able to run the football. And right now, the Lions' front 7 is decimated by injuries. You've got 3 defensive linemen who are did not practice Monday or Tuesday for the Lions. They're missing, obviously, Aiden Hutchinson. They're missing some key personnel. The Packers need to win in the trenches, and that offensive line, especially in my mind, the middle of the offensive line, they have got to be moving some of those backup linemen or injured linemen off the ball and creating enough space for Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson, and Chris Brooks to do their thing, especially in between the tackles.
Yeah, Aleem McNeil has been really good for the Detroit Lions defense. He's he's been that linchpin that has kept that Lions defensive front really together so far this year. And the Lions reward him with a huge, massive contract extension during the season. Deservedly so. The guy's a monster. You got to take care of him. But Josh Jacobs, he still was able to run the ball well against Detroit in that first game. 13 carries for 95 yards. The problem was the Packers, the passing game wasn't that great. There's a lot of drops. It was a wet game. The Packers didn't handle the elements very well. Detroit handled it much better than Green Bay did. Luckily, this game coming up on Thursday, elements won't be a factor. It's going to be more of the crowd noise. But you got to feed Josh Jacobs because he's just so good. But my matchup to watch, Gil, speaking of the passing game, how inefficient it was in that first meeting, it's the Packers receivers against the football. I'm not even talking about the Lions defense. I'm talking about the Packers receivers against the football. Now, the Lions registered a pick 6 in that first meeting. That was huge. 7 points on the defensive side of the ball. The 7 points the Packers offense gave up. And the Packers receivers, it's been no secret. They've been struggling mightily with drops in this whole season. In that first game alone, they had 6 drops in that first meeting. 4 of those drops came on third downs in that game. Chris Brooks had the red zone drop on the game's opening drive. Tucker Kraft had a critical one on third down before a missed field goal in the first half. And then there were 2 by Dontavian Wicks, including 1 drop in the end zone. Green Bay has 28 drops this year. That's second in the NFL behind Cleveland. They have dropped 8.1% of their targets this year as well. By far the worst mark in the league. No team has more than 6.8% outside of Green Bay. So ball control is the big thing, Gil, for me, where just catch the damn ball, man. Catch and then run, and it could be a totally different game come Sunday. Because honestly, in my opinion, Jordan Love, I thought, threw a pretty darn good ball in the rain in that first meeting against Detroit. Nobody was catching it, though.
Yeah, nobody was catching it. And, look, Jordan Love is healthier than he was in that game against Detroit. And one thing you could say about this matchup between the Packer receivers and the football, the wind won't have an effect. The sun will not have an effect. The ball will not be wet unless somebody bleeds or spits on it. You are looking at, perfect conditions, and the Packers need to take advantage of it. But, how many key drops have we seen from Dontavian Wicks? Christian Watson, not a lot of drops, but they always seem to come at the worst possible time when he's got these long passes and he's wide open and can't quite bring the ball down. They've got to take advantage of their chances because the Lions almost always do.
And I just want to drop some stats, though, with the drops, too. Wicks is third in the NFL with 8 drops this season, only behind Amari Cooper and Malik Neighbors. Jaden Reed is tied for 4th in the league with 7 drops. Romeo Dobbs is tied for 7th in the NFL with 6 drops. And Wicks, the least targeted receiver among 16 of the top 17 with the most drops in football this year. He has only 51 targets, and he has 8 drops this year. It's just been a massive problem. He's taken that Devontae Adams career arc, I think, a little bit too seriously. So that's just because he's got all the talent in the world, and the reason he's getting the ball is because he's open all the time. But I do, Gil, I'm gonna go overboard a little bit right here, and I do want to circle one more matchup, and I think this is going to be the one that the Thursday Football Crew is also going to keep an eye on because this is going to get chippy, and I can see it being chippy real quick. And it's tight end Tucker Kraft against Lions safety Kirby Joseph. Now, if you're paying attention to what stuff is being said in the media this week, Kraft called out Kirby Joseph when speaking to the media on Sunday, called Joseph a dangerous player, also said he's a good defensive back. He does have the NFL lead with 7 interceptions, tied with Packers safety Xavier McKinney for most of the NFL this year, but he might not agree with some of the places that Joseph likes to lay contact, noting he's taken some of his brothers out of the game in the past. That's fellow tight ends. And say if he gets a chance to get his hands on him, playing football, and Joseph has a history. He hit Rams tight end Tyler Higbee low, resulting in an ACL injury in the playoffs last year. He also hit Vikings tight end TJ Hawkinson low in the past. ended his 2023 season, and he missed part of this season as well as a result of that hit. Matthew Stafford called Joseph out, said he was a dirty player, and Tucker Kraft has got bad beef with Kirby Joseph, that's for sure. This is a matchup that, hey, good entertainment. You need to have a villain. This is the matchup right here that you got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. And I would also add a little bit of Jordan Love versus Kirby Joseph from a play-to-play basis, where Love is going to want to know where Joseph is. You don't want a repeat of that pick six that we saw in the first meeting between these two teams. And just like Xavier McKinney takes away part of the field when he's deep in the backfield for the Packers, Kirby Joseph can do the same thing for the Lions. So that little chess match between Love and Joseph is also something that I will have my eyes on.
And it helps that the Lions and Packers both have really good safety mates back there. Where McKinney's got Evan Williams to the side of him, he's got Javon Bullard in front, and then you got the Lions who he's got Brian Branch right next to him, who's a very physical person too, and a controversial player as well. So could be a lot. It's going to be an entertaining game when the Packers offense and the Lions defense are on the field coming up on Thursday. Now, let's get to the Lions offense against the Green Bay defense. Green Bay, total defense this year, they are 13th overall in the NFL. The Lions, well, their offense is an absolute juggernaut, second in total offense this year. Their passing attack is 5th in the NFL. Rushing attack is 4th in the NFL. And they are scoring more points than any other team in the league right now, leading the league, averaging 31.9 points per game. Green Bay's defense, well, they had a couple really good games at Lambeau in the last week against the Niners and the Dolphins. They're only allowing 20 points per game to their opponents, tied for 9th in the NFL, 17th in passing. But a lot of those yards, the ranking kind of dropped right there because Tua was getting a lot of garbage yards, getting a lot of short passes. Essentially, the Packers kept everything in front. But the rushing defense of Green Bay has been impressive. 8th in rushing yards allowed this year with 106.6 rush yards allowed. The Green Bay's run defense is really good right now. Gil, what's a matchup, though, that we should be looking forward to between the Lions offense and the Packers defense?
Yeah, there's a few of them that I have my eye on. I am going to start with the running game, though. You have a two-headed monster for the Detroit Lions. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, who is fast. You have David Montgomery, who is a tough inside runner. The Packers' run defense has done a better job lately, as you mentioned, of shutting down opponents. Done a better job of keeping contain and of penetrating and getting some tackles for loss. The difference, however, and it's important, the Packers' run defense excels when they are ahead. And it won't be as easy to get ahead of Detroit as it was to get ahead of San Francisco and Miami. So I think that's going to play into it. But, boy, Kenny Clark, who probably had his best game of the season last Thursday against Miami, they're going to need another really solid performance from him and just trying to slow down that running game, getting Detroit into 2nd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10, must-pass situations, limiting their options, and that in turn will allow the Packers to get, to tee off and get more pressure on the quarterback. So it's a chain reaction, but it all starts with slowing down the running game.
And I'm with you there, where if the Packers can get that early lead on this Detroit team, that's where the defense really excels. And they started with the ball in that first meeting against Detroit. They had an awesome opening drive. But it ended because Chris Brooks drops a pass in the red zone, and Chris Brooks has been very good. I've been a very big Chris Brooks fan this year. You and I both have been, Gil.
Yeah.
And he had that critical drop where you're probably scoring a touchdown on that drive. Instead, you end with a short field goal. You got to end with scores right here. And if you're going to limit this front seven, if you're going to limit David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, also known as Sonic and Knuckles, if you're following around on social media, ridiculous nicknames, but whatever. Hey, they're having fun. I don't care. But these two guys are so good. You can't let them take over. But another matchup I'm looking forward to watching, though, is the Lions' offensive line and pass protection against the Packers' defensive front, where Green Bay only had 1 sack in that first meeting, and that was because Penei Sewell tripped over his own right guard, Kevin Zeitler. But Green Bay's defense, that front, is playing much better from a pass rush perspective. Jeez, I got to correct myself. It's too late at night, Gil, for me. But the big thing is, it seems like the defensive line, these guys are understanding the roles a little better, and they're getting the feel for the new defense. Now it's starting to click and everything. They had 5 sacks against Miami. They had 2 against the 49ers, 7 sacks in their last 2 games. And it seems like the pass rush is starting to come around. And Rashawn Gary has been solid. Kenny Clark had his first sack of the year against Miami on Thanksgiving. Lucas Van Ness looks like a completely different player the last couple of weeks. That's what we've been hoping to see from the previous first-round pick for the Packers. And they need to set the tone up front, especially because Detroit may not have their left tackle, Taylor Decker. It sounds very likely that they won't. This game is going to be one of the trenches. And if the Packers defensive front can have a big game like they did last year at Thanksgiving at Ford Field in Detroit, could be a very good day for the Packers.
Yeah, and not having your starting left tackle in Taylor Decker, that is huge. And then you need Rashawn Gary to take advantage of that. Mm-hmm. And maybe Quay Walker will do a little more blitzing coming up the A-gap.
He's had his best games the last couple of weeks, too.
He has been great, and he stepped up. When Edgerrin Cooper's been out, having Quay Walker step up and play his best football is encouraging. Obviously, he needs to keep going and doing that consistently. But boy, oh boy, it's been great to see because we all knew the raw talent was there. But yeah, you got to get Jared Goff uncomfortable. That's the bottom line. You don't necessarily have to sack him 5 times, but you get him out of rhythm. You make him uncomfortable. You put pressure on him. And, maybe you force him into 1 or 2 critical mistakes, and that makes a huge difference in this game.
Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions in Houston. Houston's defense did a bang-up job defending that Lions offense. Now, Houston couldn't do anything with it. I think if the Packers were to intercept Goff even twice, I think the Packers have a very good opportunity to pull off the upset and win this game in Detroit in the Motor City. But Houston provided the tape on how to essentially limit this Lions offense. Now the Packers just got to go do it. And the Packers, remember, their defense only allowed 17 points in that first game too. They actually, for the most part, they had a good game plan. They just made critical mistakes, there were critical penalties, critical times, critical drops as well. Just too many mistakes to overcome in that first meeting. You got to think it's going to be better because if you look at it too, it looks like a little more positive. If you put a positive spin on it, I feel like the Packers played one of their worst games and they still only lost by 10. They still have an opportunity in that game. Against
a team that's 11-1. So
against arguably the best team in football right now.
Right. So, you take that, but here's the thing. And I think we've talked about this at different times on the show all year. The team that has beaten the Packers most this year is the Packers. And, whether it's the penalties or the 1 or 2 sloppy plays that lead to turnovers or drop passes, you can't have that. When you are on the road against a division rival, against the team with the best record in the NFL, a team that wants to, put you away in the division race, you have to play a near perfect game. You cannot give an 11-1 team second and third chances to beat you because they will.
And the Lions are just one of the most well-coached teams in football. They're definitely top 3, I would say, in terms of coaching. It's just an outstanding group. It's fundamentally sound team in general. And real quick, some key stats and figures just to keep note of going into that Thursday night game. Turnover ratio this year. Well, the Packers, they haven't given the ball away the last couple of weeks in those big wins against the Niners and Dolphins. Packers are +9 in turnover ratio this year. That's 6th best in the league. Lions right behind them at +8, 7th best in the NFL. Penalties, well, this has been a bit of an issue all year for Green Bay. They have 82 penalties on offense. That's 11th most, and 81 penalties on defense, also tied for 11th most. While Detroit, offensively, 74 penalties. They're a little more towards the middle of the pack, tied for the 14th fewest in the league. 80 penalties on defense. That's 15th most. And obviously there's a lot of attitude in that Detroit defense where I'm surprised that this number isn't even higher in regards to penalties. Third down percentage. Green Bay's offense, 38.2% this year, 16th in the league, right in the middle. 35% on defense. That's 11th best in the NFL. And Detroit, well, if you want to know why they're such a juggernaut, they are great on third down. 45.7% on third down on offense, 4th best in the league, and they are the best third down defense in football this year, 31.7%. They know how to put the clamps on at the right time, and they are just so good at third down, at winning the third down battle game in and game out. And then red zone touchdown percentage. Green Bay's offense has been light years better than they were a few weeks ago. 55.1% on offense this year. That's 15th best in the league. Keep in mind, the offense was 1 for 4 on red zone trips for touchdowns in that first meeting against Detroit. You get that up a little higher, and guess what? You're going to have a much better game. Defensively, 58.9%, 20th in the NFL. Detroit's offense and defense, some of the best when it comes to the red zone. Offensively, 66% this year, 6th best in the league. 41.9% on defense. That's 2nd best in the NFL. So you just see these stats and figures, and you're just like, all right, it does make sense why the Detroit Lions are 11-1 and have won 10 straight games.
Yeah, absolutely. They are where they belong. And, right now they are the front runners in the division until proven otherwise, and it's up to the Packers to prove otherwise.
Now, the big thing is the Packers seem to be playing Detroit at a decent time, even though Detroit's a really good team, because they are just decimated by injuries right now. A few guys who haven't practiced this week include offensive tackle Taylor Decker with a knee issue. Dan Campbell, the head coach of the Lions, said that Decker most likely will not play on Thursday. Defensive tackle Levi Onwuzurike has a hamstring issue, hasn't practiced this week. Veteran D tackle DJ Reader, who didn't play in the first game, is dealing with a shoulder. Dan Campbell said he's day-to-day. And then D lineman Josh Pascal, dealing with a knee issue, has not practiced this week. And these are some of the names, if you're watching with us on YouTube, some of the names that are on IR for the Detroit Lions. They have 18 players on IR, highlighted by linebackers Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes, linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez, who suffered a season-ending ACL injury in the Thanksgiving win over Chicago, defensive lineman John Kaminsky, Marcus Davenport, as well as defensive end Aiden Hutchinson, safety Ifeadi Melifonwu, cornerback Ennis Rakestraw Jr., and wide receiver Khalif Raymond. Just a huge list of injury for the Detroit Lions. But that just goes to show how little of a fluke their season has been, because they're just good, man. They're just good. You got to tip your cap to them.
Got to give them credit. The old cliche in the NFL is next man up. They have mastered that this year.
Gil, give us a few reasons. Why does Green Bay win on Thursday?
To me, it's going to come down to 3 things, and that is it's going to come down to turnovers, it's going to come down to the red zone, and third down. Those are the 3 things that I think are going to be the ultimate difference in this game. Unfortunately, the Lions have an advantage statistically in both the red zone and on third down. But if the Packers can even break even in those 2 categories, I think they can win the game.
I'm with you on that, where the most important thing is don't give the ball away. Do not give the ball away, and please catch the football. We can't have 6 drops again against this football team. And if the Packers win this game, it's going to be because the offense keeps continuing to play at a high level against a Detroit defense that is very decimated by injury right now. And Detroit's defense looks like a team that is just decimated by injury because the Packers offense has their way with them. That could be a big reason why the Packers win. Why does Green Bay lose?
Green Bay loses if they beat themselves, if the penalties come back, if the turnovers are a problem, if they don't execute on third down. We can go back to the first game and talk about all the drops that caused a lot of third and fourth downs to not go the Packers' way. That, and if they don't stop the running game. If Detroit can run the football consistently, this could be a long, long night.
Green Bay registered 411 yards of total offense in that first game and only scored 4 points. I think the big thing is the red zone offense has been so much better the last couple of weeks. If they cannot finish drives on offense again this week, if those red zone issues from earlier this year, if they resurge on Thursday, the Packers are going to lose. Because I think they're going to get plenty of yards on this Detroit defense, but it's a matter of ending drives with 6-7 points instead of 3 points. Yep. They've got to finish drives in the end zone. That's it. If they don't, if they go to the red zone 5 times on Thursday and they only get 1 touchdown, guess what? They ain't going to cut against this team. Gil, with that all being said, what is your prediction for Thursday?
I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think this is going to go back and forth. I think that in the last minute of this game, the outcome will still be in doubt. But I have to think Detroit will find a way to win at home. And I hate to say it, but I'm going 35-33 Lions with, again, in the last minute, maybe even the last 30 seconds, the outcome is still in doubt.
I'd be very surprised if no team scored more than 30 points in this game. I would be, because I think the Lions offense, the Packers offense, they're healthy, but the Packers defense has some injuries. The Lions defense has a whole ton of injuries. This should be a high-scoring game in perfect conditions where the elements won't be a factor at all. I think the Packers are going to play a really good football game, but I just think the Lions are playing such good football right now, and they're going to find a way to win. I have the Lions winning 31-30 over Green Bay. So, Gil, we were only a few points off. You had the Lions winning by 2 points, twice as many points as I did, where I have the Lions winning by 1 point.
I doubled you up.
I just feel like, too, where I feel like we're going to come out of this game feeling really good about the Packers offense. And obviously I feel like we're going to be angry about the defense, but you're going against the best offense in football. You're going to give up some points.
You are. And look, they've put up a 50-point game, twice already this year? So,
yeah,
they're capable, and they don't slow down. They just keep running up the darn score.
Yep, that's what they like to do. And Gil, before Thursday, what articles you got online? What you got cooking on Cheesehead TV, Packers Post? Let us know what we can tune into and click on.
Well, for the Packers Post, I did a little piece on the Packers offensive line. I think they're kind of the catalyst of the offense. They don't get a lot of respect or attention, but I think that, they really make both the running game and the passing game go. So definitely had to mention them and give them their props. And, for Cheesehead, I talked a little bit about the importance of getting Tucker Kraft and Jaden Reed a little bit more involved in the offense. Jaden Reed, throw the ball more to him downfield. And Tucker Kraft, don't be afraid to use him as a check down anytime you can do it, because he'll take a 2-yard pass and get 11 yards out of it.
Two of the Packers' top receiving targets. I agree with you there, Gil. And also with that offensive line, hey, Packers running backs are averaging 4.8 yards per carry running the ball this year. It's tied for 7th best in the NFL, and they've only allowed 15 sacks this year. That's 2nd best in the NFL. Yeah, The offensive line is pretty darn good that we got cooking in Green Bay. And also, real quick, in case you're online, there's some pretty big Hall of Fame news related to the Packers. Former Packer wide receiver Sterling Sharpe and former Super Bowl winning head coach Mike Holmgren. They are both finalists for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Holmgren's the only coach finalist. Sharpe is one of 3 senior finalists. Now, both need at least 80% of the vote to make it to the Hall. And the Hall of Fame panelists, they can only vote for 3 players from that list of 5. Maximum of 3 of the finalists can be voted in. Holmgren obviously helped revitalize the Green Bay Packers. Big part of that with Ron Wolf and Brett Favre and Reggie White. Really the Mount Rushmore of the Packers resurgence in the 90s. And then Sterling Sharpe, where that guy had an amazing career, made 5 Pro Bowls, 3-time first-team All-Pro, scored 18 touchdowns in his final full season, a Packer record, which he still holds single-handedly, tied with Devontae Adams, which he got that mark in 2020. Sterling Sharpe's, though, career was cut short after 7 years after a career-ending neck injury. It's about time these guys are getting some recognition, and I think Sterling Sharpe's going to get in. I don't know about Mike Holmgren, but I think Sterling Sharpe's going to get in, and he should.
I think they both belong, but I agree. Sharpe, to me, one of the keys for the Hall of Fame is dominance. And Sterling Sharpe, in 5 of his 7 NFL seasons, was a dominant player.
Yes, he was.
Set the record for receptions in back-to-back seasons. He set the record, and then the following year, he broke his own record. I mean, other than Jerry Rice, I can't think of a better receiver from that era. And, Pro Bowls, All-Pro, you have that magical playoff game against the Lions in 1993 where he catches 3 touchdown passes, including the game winner in the closing minute from Brett Favre. He belongs in the Hall of Fame. If you're going to put Gale Sayers in the Hall of Fame and Terrell Davis in the Hall of Fame,
and Tony Baselli,
you've got to have Sterling Sharpe. He was that good and he was that dominant.
Sharpe is still among the franchise leaders with 595 career catches, which is 3rd in franchise history, 8,134 receiving yards, which is also 3rd, and 65 receiving touchdowns. That's 4th in Packers franchise history. In a Packers history that's very, very rich in wide receiver tradition. That guy would have had untouchable records, even if he played a couple more years, in my opinion. He he was special. I was too young to watch Sterling Sharp, but I've watched plenty of highlights over the years, and that guy was an absolute animal. And hey, remember, his brother Shannon Sharp is in the Hall of Fame, and he famously said at his Hall of Fame speech, I'm the only guy who is in the Hall of Fame whose brother who was the second best football player in his own family.
Yeah.
That's how good he was. That's how special he was.
And he was. And as someone who does remember Sterling Sharp, he belongs in the Hall. No question.
Well, Gil, you ready for some trivia?
Let's do it.
Well, in light of the news from the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Gil, we're going to have some trivia stemming off of that. We obviously just talked about Sterling Sharp's absolute greatness in his shortened NFL career. He's still regarded as one of the greatest offensive players to ever play for the Green Bay Packers. In regards to catch percentage, and we were also talking about drops too, and how that's been a massive issue for the Packers this year, essentially how many intended targets a pass receiver caught amongst Packer receivers with at least 120 targets in a single season. Sharp's top catch percentage of his career is 6th all-time in Packers team history. Now, Gil, 4 Packer receivers registered higher single-season catch percentages than Sterling Sharp. Name the 4 wide receivers.
Oh, gosh, this is tough. I mean, do the records go all the way back to Don Hudson? I mean, is he even an option?
It's all-time Packer.
Okay, I got to say Don Hudson then.
And this is catch percentage, remember. So
right.
Don Hudson played in an era where the quarterback play wasn't as strong as recent time.
Very true.
So name the 4 Packer receivers. I'll let you take a stab at it.
All right, I'm going to go Don Hudson, Boyd Dowler, Billy Houghton, and I got to go. Let's see. I got to go Devontae Adams.
So yeah, Devontae Adams is number 1 on that list. He has 2 seasons of a higher catch percentage. Randall Cobb, Donald Driver, and Jordy Nelson. These are all guys. 100 all modern guys. It's a passing era. That's where I was trying to lean that way for you.
I tried to be too cute.
But that goes to show how deep and rich history the Packers have when it comes to receivers, because you had to think that far back. Because Don Hudson's got a building named after him, and his jersey number is retired. No one is ever going to wear his jersey number ever again. But with all that though, Sharp's career best catch percentage in a single season when he was thrown to at least 120 times was in 1992. He caught 108 of 162 intended targets, which was a catch percentage of 66.7%. Devontae Adams holds the 2 highest single season catch percentages in Packers history with a catch percentage of 72.8% in 2021. And this number is absurd, Gil. I didn't realize how great this was. I knew he was great in 2020. His catch percentage, 77.2%. That guy was on a whole nother level that year. And that obviously coincided with Aaron Rodgers' back-to-back MVP seasons. And then his records were followed by Randall Cobb's 71.7% mark in 2017, Donald Driver's 67.2% mark in 2007, and Jordy Nelson's 66.9% mark in 2013. So, yeah, a little more of a modern number right there. But Devontae Adams, man, I know he's had his struggles with the Jets, and I know it's still sour for some Packer fans that he forced his way out after Rodgers wanted out or wasn't committed long-term. But that guy was amazing. That guy was special, dude.
He was. He really, really was. And the chemistry that he and Rodgers had was incredible. It's a shame it ended the way it did, but he is a bona fide Packer Hall of Famer and probably a Pro Football Hall of Famer as well.
Well, hopefully we can honor Devontae Adams with some big catches on Thursday night at Detroit. The 9-3 Packers against the 11-1 Detroit Lions. Thursday kickoff at 7:15 Central Time. Big game in the Motor City coming up in less than 48 hours. Packers looking to avenge that Week 9 loss at rainy Lambeau, win their 4th consecutive game. Lions haven't lost a football game since mid-September. Hopefully the Packers can change that. Lions have won 10 straight games. Packers looking to end that streak this week. Week 14 opens up with kickoff from Motown at 8:15 Eastern, 7:15 Central Time. The Packers have any shot winning the division this season, Gil. Like you said in the open, got to win this game on Thursday.
Got to win it. I think they can win it. I think it'll be a very close game. And I also think this will probably be one of the most entertaining games of the NFL regular season.
You got to think this is going to be a viewership record coming up for Thursday Night Football this Thursday. It's just a prime matchup. There are Packer fans everywhere. The Lions are just an unbelievable team this year. It's going to be a good one. Let's hope the Packers deliver the upset over on their turf this time.
Fingers crossed. Let's see what they can do. All right. Well, that's it for today. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter at Packers and at Packers on all things Packers, or to ask us questions. Or you can email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. A big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show, and thank you for listening. Till next time, go Pack Go.
Happy 27th birthday, Rashawn Gary. Go Pack Go!